The files that I'll be dealing with today are from the box that has been labeled exhibit number LGC stroke GPPA stroke KMC. So each of the files are referenced. So I'll be indicating which file I'm dealing with as I'm dealing with them. But before starting with the files, I just wanted to find out from Mr. Sanya. We've been going through the compliance review reports that your authority compiled after visiting the different councils. I just wanted to know, what is the legal basis for your office carrying out these compliance audits?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you look at the provisions of the Act, Section 12 requires the authority to monitor and regulate public procurement in accordance with what the law provides for.
May I just, to be specific, is that Section 12 of the 2014 Act or the 2022 Act?
2014.
2014, okay. So I'm asking this because, do you have a copy of the Act in front of you?
Yes, 2014
Okay.
Act.
So Section 56 of the Act actually provides that it is the Auditor General that should conduct auditing of procurement activities for procuring organizations. So I was just wondering whether there's a different provision that gives your authority the power to carry out these audits. So I'll just read for the benefit of everybody listening. Section 56 says regular auditing of procurement activity. Subsection 1. Procurement activity shall be subject to regular auditing by the Auditor General to ensure that public funds are expended for their intended purpose and with a view to maximizing value received by the public purchaser, ensuring that proper and accountable systems are in place and adhered to, and identifying any weaknesses in procurement. 2. The Auditor General shall conduct annual audits of the procurement activities of entities and shall furnish copies of reports on the audits to the authority upon request from the authority. Now, the authority is obviously GPPA. And 3, it says the Auditor General shall also carry out specific audits into the procurement activities of entities and compliance by contractors, suppliers, and consultants with the procurement requirements in this Act and regulations made under this Act at the request of the authority. The statutory audit of procurement activities may be relied upon by the authority to institute measures to improve the procurement system. So Section 56 specifically gives this power to the Auditor General, and it provides that the Auditor General will provide your institution with a copy of the report if you request it, and your institution may use those reports to institute measures to improve the procurement system. So I don't know what is the basis, legal basis, as I asked before, for your authority conducting the audits instead of the Auditor General?
Now, like I said earlier, if you look at Section 12 of the GPPA Act, it provides that the authority shall be an autonomous agency responsible for regulating and monitoring of public procurement in the Gambia. So here you have two very important rules: monitoring and regulation. Now it is on those basis that we regulate, as the review, the compliance review is part of our regulatory mandate. Now if you look at section 12.1 and 7, which provides that the authority shall collect data on public procurement and monitor the performance of procuring organizations in their conduct of...
I'm sorry, what provision are you reading? 12.1?
Yes, section 12.1.
Okay.
Which provides that the authority shall collect data on 7, sorry.
7.
Yes, 12.7, 12.
I'm just confused because the act that we have does not...
I have a different...
Yes, I also have a different...
12.7, it's without prejudice.
Yes.
Look at it again, Mr. Sanya. 12 sub 7 is without prejudice to the generality of subsection 1 to 6.
To 6, yes.
The functions of the authority shall be to A, provide guidance in developing and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of public procurement operations. And it goes on to D. It goes on to O, paragraph O. That is where it stops.
Okay, whatever the case may be, section 12.1, the authority shall be an autonomous agency of the government responsible for the regulation and monitoring of public procurement in the Gambia.
Yes.
When you go to 2, a procuring organization shall not engage in a procurement above such, but that one have more to do with the prior reviews. But then it is clear in section 1 that part of our function is monitoring.
Yes. So section...
Now, to monitor, we must design ways in which we can, of course, review procurement transactions that are conducted by procuring organizations to verify their compliance levels. And that is where the prior reviews come in. Because if you look at the monitoring and regulation, now monitoring is more of the prior reviews that we were conducting. And then you have the regulation where we go out, review them, look at what they are doing, and ensure that whatever they are doing is in line with what the law provides for.
So that's your interpretation of 12.1?
Yes, but I think I'm not very sure, but there is a section either in the regulation or I'm not sure of where which section exactly, but there is a section that talks about compliance reviews.
So let's just... So regulation 6 talks about compliance review. And it says, pursuant to section 57 of the Act, the authority may from time to time review transactions completed by procuring organizations with a view to verifying compliance with procurement procedures and instructions. In the exercise of the function mentioned in sub-regulation 1, above staff of the authority may conduct interviews, site visits, and physical verification or employ any other appropriate strategy. Compliance universe. The entities within the scope of the compliance audit shall include ministries, departments, agencies, and projects. Independence. GPPA activities shall be independent and reviewers must be objective in the performance of their work. So now Regulation 6 says that it's based on Section 57 of the Act. Or it's made pursuant to Section 57 of the Act. Section 57 of the Act deals with bodies to cooperate with the authority, and it says all public entities, individuals, and officials involved in public procurement shall, in accordance with this Act and other applicable legislation, provide full cooperation and disclosure to the authority, the Auditor General, and other authorities exercising monitoring and supervisory jurisdiction over public procurement pursuant to the laws of the Gambia. Now, Section 57 is after 56, which has specifically stated which body is supposed to carry out audits of procurement activities. Now, the section that you're relying on, Section 12.1, is a general provision which says what the powers of the authority are. You come to 56, which has specific instructions as to who is supposed to conduct the audit exercises.
But here you are referring to procurement audit.
Yes.
What about compliance reviews, compliance audit?
Are you saying that the procurement, in your compliance audit, you're not looking at the procurement?
We look at procurements, but
okay,
these
so
are
what's the difference between the procurement audit and the compliance with procurement audit?
Now, when you talk about compliance audit, here you are looking at the way procuring organizations conduct their procurements and how do they conduct this in compliance with what the law provides for.
So are you saying during a procurement audit these would not be considered?
You cannot divorce the two, but they are two different things.
So you're saying that your audit will only look at whether the institution has complied with the provisions of the Act. So that's all you're doing. And then the Auditor General should look at whether the institution has complied with the provisions of the Act as well as the actual procurement activities.
Right.
So
yes.
Do you not think that both would be excessive?
Pardon?
You're doing what the Auditor General should be doing.
That what I'm saying is, it's difficult to divorce the two.
You can't divorce the two.
Yes, but at the end of the day, these are two different things. One of them is review to determine how compliance a procuring organization is.
That's what I'm asking you. When the Auditor General conducts their own audit, if the Auditor General conducts their audit, they're going to carry out the audit that you have done, as well as further audits. Is that all right?
I'm not sure what they will find out as.
You just said procurement audit would involve the compliance as well as the procurement.
What I said was compliance audit will look at a procuring organization conducts its procurement in compliance with what the law provides for. And now the audit will go into detail to look at not only how they comply with the laws, but also other in-depth or nitty-gritties of the system, the monetary aspects, and so on and so forth. I think theirs is more detailed.
So that's why I'm asking whether it would not be counterproductive to have you go carry out a compliance audit, and then the Auditor General carries out a compliance audit and further audits.
Yes, but in addition to that, I think I said it here that even with GPPA, when we conduct our reviews and find something that we think requires more detail or an in-depth audit exercise, we can always report the case to the Auditor General to go and conduct a more detailed audit about.
But you already said as well that you don't even send your reports to the Auditor General. So when would you ask them to conduct an in-depth audit?
We will ask them to conduct an in-depth audit if at any point we find or we suspect something which probably is seen to be in fraudulent or anything that requires an audit exercise.
Has there been any instance where you've asked the Auditor General to conduct such an audit?
Yes.
When was this?
That was some years ago, and it was about social security on Jabang, social security. I think it was Jabang and Tujereng estates. So here we, of course, reported the case, not report per se, but we liaised with the Auditor General to conduct a more detailed report, which was provided and was laid before the National Assembly.
Do you remember what year this was?
I cannot remember the year exactly.
And what was the fraudulent issue?
I cannot say it was a fraudulent issue, but it has something to do with a contract that was not going, that didn't go well as provided for, or in meeting the requirements or in meeting the contract agreements.
So can you provide us a copy with that report?
Yes, I will try.
Okay. I was going to ask something. I've just...
Sorry, you mean because that report was, the report was by the Auditor General, and it was, I could fully remember, it was laid before the National Assembly. It's not by us.
But you were issued a copy?
It was a long time. I cannot definitely remember, but I could remember that I was at the National Assembly and the report was laid before the National Assembly.
But it would be normal for the Auditor General to send you a copy?
Pardon?
It would be normal for the Auditor General to send you a copy?
I cannot remember whether we were provided with a copy or not.
Can you check?
Okay.
And let us know by tomorrow. Do you know whether the Auditor General conducts any procurement audits? So let me allow you to write that down so you don't forget. Oh, sorry. I was asking, do you know whether the Auditor General has conducted procurement audits in accordance with the Act?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, let me just refer you to Regulation 15. And it deals with assistance to state bodies in carrying out procurement. And it essentially states that the authority should provide assistance to state bodies in carrying out procurement. The authority should organize and conduct educational programs and professional training. Now, I know you have an institute because you said you have, is it GPPI?
Yes.
Is that under the authority or is it a separate institution?
Yes, GPPI is under GPPA.
Okay. Do you conduct procurement trainings for the councils?
Yes.
Yes. How often?
Trainings are conducted upon requests. So I cannot remember exactly when the trainings were conducted at the various these things, but procuring organizations can request for training.
So the authority essentially won't provide training unless it's asked for?
Sometimes yes.
Are there trainings that the authority offers without a request?
Now, what happens in most cases is like when we conduct our reviews and find some weaknesses, one of the recommendations would be the institution to request for training. And most of the trainings that we conducted so far are conducted upon request by the procuring organizations based on our recommendations, but sometimes when they find weaknesses among themselves, then they request for training.
Do you know which of the councils have requested trainings in the past maybe 3 years?
To be accurate, I have to find out.
Okay, could you find out for us, please? The same regulation also provides that the authority is to set the minimum entry level requirements, the responsibilities of procurement officers, and other things for the procurement organizations. I believe you had said that you haven't done this for the councils, is that right? Or have you?
Trainings for the councils?
No, to provide them with details of the entry levels, the requirements, etc. for procurement officers.
Well, we have never, I don't think we've been liaising with the authorities for such things.
Because it's provided for under Regulation 15. It's one of the things that the authority is supposed to do. I'm just checking that it's something, whether it's something that has been done or has not, and if it hasn't, obviously, so that the authority will be prompted to the need for. Now, you've talked about the annual procurement plan, and every procuring organization is supposed to provide an annual procurement plan detailing what its proposed procurements are for the year. Are there any councils that have provided the authority with an annual procurement plan from 2018 to 2023?
Now, as you could see in the various reports that we have just reviewed, yes, some of the councils were, of course, sending annual procurement plans for some of the years, but not always. So I cannot remember which council sent a report for and for which year. I cannot remember.
Sorry, which council sent what?
You are talking about procurement plans, not so?
Yes, annual procurement plan.
That is what I'm saying, that some of them sent reports. And I'm not sure if there is any council that has sent reports for, plans for all the years that we have reviewed. I'm not very sure. But I know from time to time, some of them were sending annual procurement plans. I cannot remember exactly which one and for which years.
Okay, so can you check and provide us with the annual procurement plans that have been sent to your office from the period May 2018 to January 2023?
Okay.
So what happens when an institution has sent to the authority a procurement plan for the year?
When a procurement plan is sent to the authority, we look at it. We look at what they said they wanted to buy, how much is involved, which procurement method they have chosen, when they think they will start the procurement, and so on and so forth. But basically what we look at is what they intend to buy, at how much, and what procurement method they intend to use.
So the plan would contain all the planned procurement for that year, and it would not just be what they intend to purchase. So yes. It would be works, goods, services.
Correct.
So what happens when there's a procurement request that is outside of the procurement plan?
In such cases, we draw their attention that is not in the procurement plan, and then because the procurement plan doesn't mean that is something that should not be changed. If something is, they want to buy something and it's not planned for, we draw their attention to it.
You draw their attention. Oh, sorry.
Yes. We can proceed. I will ask the question.
All right, thank you. So I was going to say, you draw their attention to it. To what end? What are they supposed to do after you've drawn their attention to it?
Actually, they're supposed to adjust the plan.
Okay. Madam Chair? Chairperson?
Yes. I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that you've given evidence to indicate that there were some transactions that were not in their procurement plan, and they needed to file an addendum to that procurement plan so that it will be authorized by you for them to proceed to carry on with the activity. So is it a requirement under the regulation or the Act?
Whether what is a regulation of the...
No, what I mean is that, you have said that they need to produce procurement plans.
Exactly, yes.
So the addendum, is it also a requisite from the regulation or from the Act?
Actually, for the plan, again, I cannot remember exactly what section of the Act or regulation requires, but a plan, as we know, is a plan. And along the way, there may be new needs arising or new things that you intend to do. And when that happens, you are, of course, free to make adjustments. And here the important thing is to ensure that the corrections or the amendments are done and the amended versions of the plan sent to the authority.
For approval. Yes.
Thank you. So would that mean that any procurement done outside of the procurement plan is non-compliant and should not go ahead?
Well, it's supposed to, yes.
Okay. But you've had instances where there are councils that do not have procurement plans and have been conducting procurements. And yes. These include procurements that require prior approval from the authority. And you still grant approval, even though they don't have a procurement plan. Why is this?
Well, like I said earlier, if a request is made and the request is not part of the procurement plan, we can draw their attention to the fact that it is not planned for, and the best thing is...
No, Mr. Sanyan, that is not what Council is asking you. Council is asking you a different question. Can you please, Council, repeat the question, because it's not what you're asking him.
Yes, because I had asked you what would happen in the event that there's a procurement conducted outside of the plan, if there's no plan, whether it would be non-compliant and should not go ahead, and you said yes. So I'm saying there are councils that do not have procurement plans, and they submit procurement requests to your office for prior approval, and you approve these requests even though there's no procurement plan?
And I
asked why that is.
And my answer that I started to narrate is like, when it is not planned for, sometimes we draw their attention to it and then advise them to, we will ask them to proceed, but then the advice would be like ensuring that the procurement plan is amended and adjusted.
No, Mr. Sanya. What council is saying is that there is no procurement plan with a particular council, for instance, you understand, to make it more simplistic. And there is a procurement activity which you approve nonetheless. That is to say, without a plan, you approve the activity. So why is it that you take such a step?
Is it approved without a plan or without a procurement plan which is not on the procurement plan?
Without a plan.
So you have councils that have no procurement plan, is that not correct?
Correct. Yes.
Right. And those councils will still conduct procurement activities. And if it's a procurement activity that requires prior approval, they will send it to your authority. And your authority will deal with the procurement request and will probably approve it, even though there's no procurement plan.
Okay.
Yes. So you have said that should not happen. So now I'm asking you, in the instances where it has happened, why has it happened?
In cases like that, we look at the need for what they intend to buy, and if it is definitely needed, then we proceed and give approval and advise them to ensure that the procurement plan is provided.
Would you not agree that they would not try to procure something that is not needed?
Pardon?
Are you saying that they would try to procure something that they do not need?
They may not.
So in the event that they don't, whatever it is that they're sending to you for approval, we would assume that they need it.
Yes.
And whatever it is that should be in the procurement plan, we would assume they need.
But again, as in this case, we look at all the procurement procedures, including the requests coming from the end user. You have all the requested GPPA forms completed, and you have the minutes of the contracts committee deliberating on whatever they want to buy and then agreeing with strong justifications that this is really something that they needed.
If you're going to give approvals for procurement without a procurement plan, is there a reason that you still have that provision in the Act? I mean, you might as well do away with the provision if you yourself are not going to go by it.
Actually, there may be a need, simply because our role as an authority is not only to regulate, but also to ensure that identify their weaknesses and try to ensure that these weeknesses are...
You're the custodian of the Act. I am sure you were, perhaps not you in particular, but your authority was involved in the promulgation of the Act, in the drafting of the Act. You knew what it was that you wanted to achieve. You know what the Act says. You're the custodian. You're supposed to enforce it. So if you're not enforcing that provision, aren't you telling the councils that it's okay to not have a procurement plan? Because you don't sanction them for not having a procurement plan, and they will apply for procurement approvals, and you will grant it even though they have no procurement plan. So what's the point of them trying to prepare a procurement plan? You're not going to do anything about it.
Obviously, at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's going to be captured in our various review reports, and then will be reported to the necessary or to the right authorities for...
You're the right authority.
Yeah, but we also have oversight bodies that also...
You're overseeing the councils in respect of their procurement.
Yes, but...
And you're supposed to enforce the legislation.
But at the end of the day, we are required to generate reports and also report to other bodies.
Before you even get to the reports, you're supposed to enforce the provision. So what would happen in the event that a council without a procurement plan applies for approval to conduct a procurement, and the authority says no until you provide your procurement plan for the year?
Obviously, yes. If steps like that are taken, we expect that councils would have been more compliant.
So can you tell us why steps like that have not been taken?
The reason why steps were not taken was said here before that, yes, we are an authority, but I don't think we have that mandate to sanction, for example, to punish institutions when they grossly, if I can use that word, grossly violate what the law provides for.
I'm sorry, how is refusing to grant approval until you comply with your legislation, how does this connect?
I think that would have been a good suggestion, that we withhold their transactions until they comply with the law.
So I'm just wondering, is it that you need somebody to suggest this to you? I know you have highly competent, highly educated people in your authority. I mean, this is basic.
I don't think we needed anybody to tell us that anyway.
So Regulation 36 sets out certain prerequisite steps for initiating procurement proceedings. Sub 4 says a procuring organization may initiate actual procurement proceedings only after the determination and approval of budgetary allocations or other funds sufficient to fund the procurement are available for that purpose. Can you just explain to us what this means?
Actually, what it means is like there must be a budget from all councils or any procuring organizations. Mm-hmm. There must be a budget that clearly defines what they intend to do and specifically what they intend to procure at a particular year. And this budget will tell exactly what they intend to buy at how much.
So sub 2 says the annual procurement plan shall be submitted during the annual budget process in a form issued by the authority. So I have two questions in that regard. Does the authority have a form for the annual plan?
Yes.
You have a form. Okay. So when it says that the procurement plan shall be submitted during the annual budget process, is this the budget process for the council?
Yes, for the councils.
Okay. And so you have said that each council would have a budget, and that budget will show what it is that they need to purchase, etc. So it's clear that the councils have a budget and they know from the year before what they're going to procure the year after. Correct. So it should not be difficult to fill a procurement plan.
Correct.
So it is just a lack of enforcement issue.
Yes.
On the part of the authority.
Yes.
What would happen to a procurement process that has gone through up to the point where the council has selected a successful bidder, and then they realize that the budget that they had is not sufficient? Because this provision is talking about the procurement having to be within the budget, they should have the funds allocated, etc. What would happen in such an instance?
Now, different actions can be taken. One, if something is budgeted for and there is no sufficient fund, you can reduce the scope of...
I'm not talking about before. This is after you have gone through the procurement process and you have chosen a successful bidder, but perhaps before notifying the successful bidder, you now decide, actually, we don't have this much money, we need to reduce the scope, after other competitors have already put in their bids?
Yes, sometimes it becomes very difficult to determine, even after conducting a good market research, sometimes you find it difficult to determine the exact or to be very accurate in terms of how much it costs. So that can only be known when bids are received from various bidders. So sometimes when a bid is received or bids are received and the amount is far or by far exceeds the estimated or the budgeted, different things may happen. One, you can cancel if you think you don't have the money or the resources completely, or you can also look at the subject matter and reduce the scope of what you want to buy to be in, so that the available resources can accommodate whatever you want to do.
Mrs. Langan, don't you think that there is some financial implication in cancelling that process? If you had to follow a due process and towards the tail end, the PO realizes that they don't have sufficient financing to complete the process, and you decide the PO decides to terminate, does it not have some implication?
Of course, there are some financial implications.
So are there procedures and processes that you need to address?
Yes, that is why we have Form 100, for example, where there is a portion where the finance director can indicate that funds are available and even went on to indicate the source of funding. All should be provided. And these are some of the things that we look at when we are...
No, I'm not talking about the availability of funds. It cannot sustain the activity, or there is something unanticipated that has happened and you cannot go on with the procurement. So what would happen? So my question is, don't you think there is some financial implication to the person that had started off the process?
Yes, there are some implications.
What is the PO's responsibility here now?
Now the PO's responsibility is still to look at the procurement and then decide whether to cancel, or because cancellation is clearly provided for by the Act and regulation. Cancellation is clearly catered for. So cancellation, of course, will be considered based on what the law provides for. They can take steps to cancel. Or they can even proceed and then probably arrange payment terms.
Council, can you proceed?
Thank you. So, further to what Chairperson has just asked, there's a whole process that is followed during these proceedings, right? Usually there'll be a bid form, bid documents that are sent to your authority for approval.
Yes.
Now usually those bid documents would have the estimated cost of the procurement.
That is where we talked about market research and the like, where
it would have an estimated cost.
Yeah, but the estimated cost is not normally shown in the bidding document. That is confidential to the procuring organization.
There are several bidding documents that are here that have gone to your office that contain the amount. So I don't know how confidential that is.
Now, bidding documents at GPPA, even BOQ, sometimes procuring organizations will provide BOQs, costed ones, but that is confidential to the authority so that we have an idea of how much it costs. But when it comes to the real document that will be sent to to the suppliers or contractors, that normally we don't, going by GPPA Act, the cost is not indicated.
Now, inside the bidding documents, it usually contains provisions for bid security, right?
Yes.
And the bid security is a percentage of the amount?
Yes.
And it is the percentage of the amount that has been set in the bid documents?
Yes.
So how is it that all the bidders have an idea of what the bid amount is if it's not?
Of what the cost of the bidding document is. What they will have is based on what is being requested for. If it is construction and the like, they will do their own findings or surveys and come out with a cost. Now the bid security is going to be a percentage of that estimated cost by them.
Okay, we'll go through some of the files and we'll have a conversation about this again. Now, when the council submits Form 100 to your authority, that's the requisition form, is that right?
Yes.
And the form is supposed to be signed by whom?
The head of the institution or the CEO, the budget director, and the procurement officer.
And I believe you had said that the budget person is signing to indicate that there are funds sufficient for that project.
Yes, if you look at that portion of where the finance director is going to sign, it's like saying that the signature of the finance director to indicate the source of funding and the fund availability.
Okay. And the form is accompanied by some other documents?
Yes.
Can you tell us what documents?
Now, based on the procurement method, you have different forms. For example, if it is a single source, you have Form 100, you have Form 003, and you have Form 012, and you then have the minutes of the contracts committee when and where it requires this to be submitted.
So can you tell us what Form 003 is?
Form 003 is the reporting form for single source.
Okay. And what is that form supposed to be telling you?
The form will tell you, one, what you want to buy, then you indicate the procurement method, which is single source. It must also indicate why or what justifications you have for single source. Then it will also indicate the buyer or the supplier that you want to engage. It will tell you it will have provisions where you should indicate the code, the procurement, the procurement number, and so on.
Okay, and Form 012?
Form 012 is a declaration by members of the contracts committee.
Saying that they have no interest in the...
Yes.
In the procurement. Then you have the minutes of the meeting, of the contracts committee.
Correct.
So what information is the authority looking for in those minutes?
Now here, the most important thing that we look for is contracts committee members deliberating and agreeing that they want to do X, Y, and Z, and one thing that we look for is their signatures appended. Because even if a request is sent without members of the contracts committee appending their signatures, GPPA will not take a decision because it will look like a procurement which was not discussed or not agreed upon by members of the contracts committee.
So you need all of the members to sign the minutes?
At least 3 members.
At least 3 members to sign the minutes?
Yes.
And what other information do you require in the minutes? Do the minutes need to tell you the mode of...
Yes, it will also indicate the procurement method that you intend to use.
Would it state the amount that they expect to spend?
Normally, it depends. It's a normal meeting, and for any normal meeting, anything can come out. But then,
what I'm asking is, what is it that the authority looks for in the minutes? So not just...
Now, basically, because the form, the minutes will be submitted along with other documents, including the Form 100. So, if the minutes of the contracts committee doesn't contain the amount But if the other forms are correct, properly completed, yes, we consider giving approval if conditions or all requirements are fulfilled.
Now, I am at a loss as to, because at one point, if I should have gotten you right, you have said how important the contracts committee is.
Yes.
Because at this stage, this is where the issues are, particularly the committee will negotiate on terms on the best value for money, for instance. So you are telling us now that even though the contracts committee will not sign off, and if it is sufficient for them to sign some other forms, and then they are good to go in terms of procuring whatever goods or services they want. Is that what you are saying?
Now, it depends on the procurement method that they intend to use. If it is RFQ, obviously Form 101 is very important in terms of specifications and the like to determine exactly what they wanted. If it is a tender, a bidding document is very important because the bidding document will clearly define the specs and other contractual agreements that should be considered. So when you talk about value for money here, yes, you have reporting forms that are very important, but then you have the bidding document, for example, for tenders, and Form 101 if it is request for quotation and single source, because that is where the requirements or the specifications will be clearly indicated.
So, given what you are telling us, is that why the POs decide not to follow your rules, because any which form can be sufficient to do their procurement?
Now, for transactions that are sent to our approval, any form cannot be sufficient. But if you look at those transactions by POs, the councils, if I may refer you to most of the reports that we looked at, most of them, you have tender, nil, and all the other procurement methods except single source and request for quotation. And also, most of these single sources and requests for quotations were not subjected to our prior approval. But under normal circumstances, transactions that were to us, we look at some of these documents that we are talking about.
But in all these transactions that we have looked at in your review reports, we've seen that you highlighted that these POs did not comply with regulations, that is, by setting up the required contracts committee to deal with the issues.
I think the facts or the findings are clearly indicated. What is lacking is the actions that should be taken by the authority, but otherwise all the non-compliant issues are clearly indicated.
Council, you can proceed.
Thank you. Now, when the procuring organization sends to their documents, so say the bid documents, and they've proposed a time frame for the contract, does the authority give advice in respect of things like that?
Yes.
Maybe the time frame might be short for delivery or things like that?
Yes, in terms of cancellation, they will request and then the authority will advise.
No, not cancellation. When they send you their bid documents for approval.
Yes.
Say they want to build something and they've said it should be done within 6 months. Does the authority look at this to see whether it is realistic or not and advise them, or does the authority not interfere in things like that?
Anyway, Section 13(2) of the GPPA Act prohibits the authority from interfering in any procurement activity.
So they're sending you their forms for approval?
Yes.
So you're saying if there's stuff in the forms that you think need to be amended, to advise them accordingly would be interfering in the procurement activity?
Now, when we talk about interfering, you talk about, for example, timeline, maybe 6 months of a contracts committee. They must have the expertise to advise them, for example, for a contract duration and so on. Now they decide that a contract should last for about 6 months and so on, and they make their request. GPPA, of course, we look at it carefully, but we would not go that far to say, no, you cannot do it, or you should not do it, because that may tantamount to interference.
Okay, thank you. I understand that. Registrar, please show this file to the witness. Chairperson, this is KMC file 7 of 2019. Now, this file was for the procurement of a shed and kiosk at Latrikunda Giri City Market.
Did you get what she's saying?
No, no.
She said you should look at the file.
Yes.
Okay.
That is file reference 719.
Yes, 719.
Can you tell us what that file is about, or what that procurement is about?
The construction of shed and kiosks at the Talinding Jirifa, something like that, market.
Okay. And what are the documents that the council sent to your office?
You have meeting description. Sorry, they are the minutes of the contracts committee dated 19 July 2019.
And their bid
You
documents
also
as
have
well?
a bidding document.
Now those bidding documents, you had said the bid document should go with the contract committee meeting minutes.
Yes, and that is
And
what,
you would assume that the meeting minutes would indicate the type of, the method of procurement to support the bidding documents that were prepared.
yes, supposed to.
Okay, so the meeting minutes at paragraph 4 is saying that the CEO informed the meeting that the council has passed a resolution for the project to begin, and the initial cost involved may be high. As a result, they have looked at the possibility of entering into a design, build, operate, and transfer model with potential partners. The need for the council to provide the funding for the project was also discussed.
Okay.
As such, after a series of consultations with stakeholders management, he revealed he was able to come with specifications where only a shed would be constructed with a floor concrete for the first phase of the project.
Okay.
Now they have said that they have, the finance director however observed that hence the council is entering into a lean period and they are beginning to feel budget constraints. It would be prudent to defer the project till 2020. As that would help them to be in a better position to foot the bill. And they have said other things about why they can't go back, and they will allow the project to proceed. And after a thorough deliberation on the issue, the meeting agreed for the market to be constructed with the same standard specification used at the Serekunda market for uniformity and durability reasons. there's no indication as to the method of procurement. There's also no Form 100.
Yes, there is no Form 100, and even other reporting forms are not.
So your authority wrote back to them to ask for, your authority wrote back to the council on the 28th of August 2019.
Let me look at the response from the authority. The authority acknowledges receipt of your request. However, you are obliged to provide and amend the following documents in order for the authority to make a formal decision on your procurement request for the construction of set and kiosks at the Talinding. These are the forms. 1. No GPPA Form 100, that is the national requisition, was not attached. So we are drawing their attention to the fact that these are not present. 2. To complete and submit GPPA Form 012, record of restricted tender, and number 3, no Form 016, pre-qualification determination of suppliers. So based on this, approval was not given until these documents are completed.
Do you know whether the documents were resubmitted?
I cannot remember, I cannot know, because this is where we stopped, and this is the response from GPPA, and this is a file showing the beginning of a transaction. Any further document that comes would have been part of this submission.
So your authority advised them to involve an independent consultant to prepare standard bidding documents for the procurement.
That is what we advise them to.
Why would that arise? Is the bidding document that they attach, is that not the approved GPPA bid document?
Yeah, but our advice was for them to involve somebody, an expert, to help them with that expertise advice, which is not also a bad thing. But again, it was an advice. We advised them to do so. We advised them to that direction.
So you advised them to get an independent consultant for detailed design, drawing, and specification, support in the tender evaluation, contract negotiation, and construction supervision. These look like 3 different areas. Would they not need a consultant for each one?
These are all mentioned, but one, it is a suggestion and advice. But then, if an expert is chosen, probably they may not need different experts for different things.
But that's why I'm asking, because what is the likelihood of having an expert that is an expert at detailed design, drawing, and specifications, tender evaluation, contract negotiation, and construction, well, perhaps construction supervision with the other ones?
In fact, it's advisable to have the same person, because if somebody is part of a design, will be in a better position to evaluate based on his design or his advice on the design.
Now, something like this, if it had been contained in a procurement plan and the plan is submitted to you, does the authority provide any general advice in respect of the procurement plan that has been submitted, or you would wait until a request for prior approval is sent?
Well, the advice could be done at procurement planning level based on what is submitted, but then it depends, because there is no provisions in either in the regulation or the like to indicate that our actions or advices that we should give should come at time X, Y, and Z of the submission. But based on the submission, we look at it and then give them technical advice as when and where this is needed.
Thank you. Registrar, can you please give this to the witness and retrieve the other file?
Yes. Before you proceed, let me find out. What is the content of the letter dated the 28th of August 2019?
The content.
Yes.
Can I read?
Yes, please.
The caption is the construction of shed and kiosks at Talinding.
Who wrote the letter?
One Babakar Seka.
Is addressed to who?
Chief Executive Officer, Kanifing Municipal Council.
Can you please read the letter?
We refer to your on-reference letter, meaning their letter didn't have any reference, and we expect letters to also have references. So we refer to your on-reference letter and dated on the 26th August 2019 relative to the above captioned subject matter. The authority acknowledges receipt of your request. However, you are obliged to provide and amend the following documents in order for the authority to make a formal decision on your procurement request for the construction of shed and kiosks at the Talinding market.
Okay.
So
yes.
You have the forms?
Yes. You've listed them.
Yes.
So during the course of your review, did you confirm whether this shed and kiosk was built and approval was granted?
No, I didn't.
Can you cross-check?
Okay.
And let us know by tomorrow when you come in.
Okay.
So in that file, the contract was not negotiated, right?
Well,
or is there any evidence that it was negotiated?
In fact, based on this submission,
yes.
This is where it stopped.
Okay.
Because there are no evidences to show that the bidding took place. There were offers, they were evaluated, and a supplier or contractor identified and the contract awarded.
Okay.
That is why I said earlier on that this is a package, and anything that comes after should be part of this submission.
Okay. Thank you. Council, yes.
Chairperson, the witness has been shown file 8 of 2019. Now, this is a Canopy Municipal Council file.
Yes.
And there's a letter dated the 25th of November 2019 addressed to the Director General, Gambia Public Procurement Authority, forwarding requests for proposal for municipal bus service. And they're saying that the Lord Mayor established a task force to establish a municipal bus service in Canifing Municipality. The task force has identified the need to provide residents of Canifing with affordable, efficient, and comfortable transportation to promote mobility throughout the municipality. The council solicited for expressions of interest for this project and received 3 expressions of interest. The task force on municipal bus service prepared a request for proposal that was approved by the contract committee on 21st November 2019. The contracts committee has recommended that given the open and competitive nature of the request for expressions of interest, that the tender should be restricted to the 3 bidders who submitted the expressions of interest. And they attached the request for proposal, the minutes from the contracts committee, and a summary report of the expressions of interest received. Can you tell us about expressions of interest?
Now, in expression of interest, the procuring organization may have identified a project or something that they intend to do, and then invite interested people, firms, contractors, or the like, to express interest in whatever the procuring organization intends to do.
So then what happens?
So when
how do they, is this something that they publish?
Yes,
Okay.
It's published.
Elaborate, please.
Yes, it's publicized.
Okay, and then
But
what
sometimes it depends on the nature of the procurement. They can also restrict it to certain identified firms or individuals.
And what would be the basis for restricting something like this to certain individual firms?
Now it comes to some of the conditions for the use of restricted tender, for example.
Sorry, some of the conditions for the use of
For
what?
the use of restricted tender.
Okay.
Yes. And these can be found
But the restricted tender, is that, would the expression of interest be considered in the same manner? Would you not have to open up the expression of interest for anyone to express their interest, and then perhaps from that conduct a restricted tender?
Yes, like any other procurement, the default method is open tender. But for some reasons, this could be limited to a certain number of firms or contractors when certain conditions are met. Even with the expression of what I am saying is, okay, proceed.
Mr. Simon, wait.
Yes.
At what point would a PO decides to use restricted tender during the process?
When the conditions as expressed in the Act are met, and if you want, I can go over them.
Yes, can you kindly do so?
Section 39. Section 39 of the Act.
Yes.
Conditions for the use of restricted tendering.
Yes.
A restricted tender proceedings may be used only where A, the goods, works, consultancy services.
30 what? Sorry?
Section 38. Sorry, 39. Section 39.
Yes.
Restricted tender proceedings may be used only A, where the goods, works, consultancy services or services are only available from a limited number of bidders known to the procuring organization. B, the time and cost of considering a large number of bids is disproportionate to the value of the procurement. Or C, the requirement is of a special nature or has requirements of public safety or public security which make an open tender method inappropriate.
Okay. Council, you may proceed. I'll ask my question when council is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, what is the purpose of a bid security?
The bid security, as the name implies, is to secure the bid, to ensure that bidders will not withdraw at a stage where it will be very inconvenient for the procuring organization.
Excuse me. So what will happen where a bidder does not provide bid security?
Is not qualified to proceed. The bidder will not be qualified to proceed to the next stage. Should be disqualified.
Okay. So can you tell us a bit about this procurement? They've sent, what are the documents that were attached? Would it be right to assume that whatever document is not in that file was not sent to your authority?
Come again?
Would it be correct to assume that whatever document is not in that file was not sent to the authority in respect of that procurement?
Council, I think one thing that I should also appeal is for you to, because some of these transactions are as far back as 2018. So, of course, we cannot remember them, and already the documents are submitted to you.
That's
so
why I'm asking you, if the document is not in the file, you would assume that the file as it came to us is how I've given it to you, right?
Yes, yes.
So if a document is not in that file, I would assume that it wasn't sent to your office.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, so that's what I asked.
Okay, okay. So I don't know where you want me to start, whether I started from the first submission.
From the first submission.
So the first one is a letter from KMC.
That's the letter dated 25th November 2019. Is it?
This letter dated 18th October 2019.
Okay.
Procurement plan, minibus service. Kanifi Municipal Council would like to submit to your institution a procurement plan to engage private sector partners in the area of bus services. The Lord Mayor established a task force to establish a municipal bus service in Kanifing municipality. This task force has identified the need to provide residents of Kanifing with an affordable, efficient, and comfortable transportation to promote mobility throughout the municipality.
Sorry, let me just cut you off. That's the letter that was sent to.
Yes, this is the letter.
So what was attached to those documents, to that letter?
What was the?
What documents did they attach to that letter?
They attach minutes of the contrast committee, and these minutes dated 21st November 2019, and I believe it's in support of that proposal.
Okay, and did the authority write back to them? In respect of that submission?
Yes, the authority, GPP,
and you?
Yes, GPP responded as follows. It's a very long letter. And the letter reads, and dated 18th December 2019.
I'm sorry, is there a letter dated the 22nd October 2019?
From who?
From GPPA.
Sorry, yes. That's it, 22nd of October 2019.
Can you just give us the gist of that letter?
Address to the Chief Executive Officer, Kanifing Municipal Council, Kanifing. And the reference is Procurement Plan Municipal Bus Services. We refer to your letter, reference KMC Admin 002, dated 18th October 2019, relative to the caption matter. Following careful review of your submission of the above mentioned and the related attachments, please be informed that approval cannot be granted at this stage. You are therefore obliged to provide the following. 1. Signed copy of GPPA Form 012, and that is the declaration made by the members of the Contrast Committee by each member. 2. Signed minutes of the Contrast Committee meeting on the agreed course of action. 3. Bidding document and or terms of reference. 4. GPPA Form 005. 5. National Requisition Form 100 and feasibility study report. The authority also advised that due to the nature of this project, the Council needs to ensure that the public-private partnership arm of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs is involved. You are therefore required to resubmit the related attachments in order for the authority to make a formal decision on your request.
So from the letter, I'm assuming they didn't provide the Form 100, they didn't provide the Contracts Committee meeting minutes.
Yes, the first submission was just the proposal.
And they resubmitted.
And the other documents were missing.
Now, it's correct that they resubmitted their proposal. It's correct that they resubmitted the proposal by the letter dated 25th November 2019.
25th. Yes.
And did they provide the documents that were requested? Before that, can I just ask, do they need approval from your authority to float the expression of interest?
Yes.
So what would happen if they float an expression of interest without your approval?
Because expression of interest in the first place is not that.
It's part of the procurement process.
It's not that part of the procurement process. They can seek our sort of advice or our consent as to what they intend to do.
Does the expression of interest not have a direct bearing on whatever other procurement steps they're going to take?
No, it may not.
Okay, let's go forward. So, by the letter dated 18 December 2019, you have written back to them.
Yes.
And you say you refer to their letter dated the 25th November 2019. And you said that the authority reviewed the Task Force on Municipal Bus Service report on the expression of interest received, dated the 20th November 2019, and the recommendation to include a restricted tender, the three companies, Shaben Mahdi and Sons, GTSC, and Nofly only. It is noted that the criteria used were technical experience, financial standing, and company information.
Yeah.
Before I go on, so it is correct from this that they already floated the expression of interest. They received expressions of interest on the 20th of November 2019.
Yes.
They wrote to you on the 25th of November 2019.
Okay.
And they wanted to restrict. They wanted approval for restricted tender to the three companies that showed interest.
Yes.
So I asked you whether the expression of interest has no bearing on the procurement process, and you said no.
No, what I said, yes, not that, but at the end of the day, They express interest and they have already identified 3. They identified 3.
From the expressions of interest?
From the expression of interest. So this is our response to their expression of interest.
I know what your response is. I'm asking in respect of the question that I had previously asked, that does the expression of interest not have any bearing? Yes, you have said that your recommendations are not approved due to the following, but it has nothing to do with the expression of interest. But in any event, you said Shaib bin Mahdi's huge turnover is not in municipal bus service but in trading, vehicles and other commodities. GTSC did not provide evidence, though they are well known in this area of business. However, they have limited room for growth on balance sheet. And Nofly have 1-year bus service experience but did not provide evidence of financial standing. Given the above, it is important that the council opens up the tender and propose, I'm assuming that's supposed to be proposed, an RFP with clearly identified scope of work and evaluation criteria. The following is an outline of how to proceed. You've now gone into the documents and made vast suggestions. So where do you get the details that you have put in points 1, 2, and 3 about Shaib bin Mahdi's huge turnover, not being in municipal bus, GTSC, etc.? Because there's no indication of information like that in the file.
I'm not very sure, Council. That is why I said some of these submissions, it's been a long time, and that we really needed time to go over them, because once they are submitted to you.
That's why I also asked you, if it's not in the file, does that mean it wasn't sent to you? And you said yes. Because that's how the file came, and that's how I've given you the file.
If it is not in the file, it means that they are not sent to us.
So that's why I'm asking.
Sometimes you ask questions that are relative to some of the write-ups here that need us at least some few minutes to go, because it's been a long time that we have not gone through this document.
No problem. So where you need time, just let me know, and we'll give you the time that you need to check.
A question as to why Shaib bin Mahdi and the like, where we got that information from.
Yes.
And definitely, like I said, I needed time to go over the whole document to know if the...
Yes, Chairperson.
He always puts my mic off. I think it's almost 5. It's 5 minutes to 5. It's a convenient point to stop. We will continue tomorrow. Can you please kindly let us know if Tamura is back? Because we have boxes of your files to go through. We need him to be here if he is at the office tomorrow.
Council, to be candid, and Tambura, when he was going, he took permission from you people.
No, I know that. I want to check with you whether he is back.
Since he went, and I think this was even a concern by myself and the Director General, that since he went, we've been trying, but he is not reachable all the time. So definitely we cannot.
Okay.
We are even worried about his conditions.
That's fair enough. So we will proceed tomorrow. See you tomorrow, and we may rise. Thank you.